a $20 bag of charcoal, and a rusty barrel from the hardware store. That is how almost every pitmaster on the planet got started. And honestly, some of the best brisket ever served at a backyard cookout came off equipment that looked like it belonged in a scrapyard. But here's what nobody tells you when you first start smoking meat. There are levels to this. 7 of them, actually. And the jump between each one is not just about price. It is about what the smoker can do, how much it demands from you, and whether the food coming off the grate is actually better or just more expensive. So let us walk through all 7, from the cheap barrel smoker leaning against the garage wall to the $50,000 trailer rig parked outside a competition tent in Kansas City. Level 1. The entry-level barrel and bullet smokers. This is where the addiction starts. You walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's, you see a vertical bullet smoker sitting on a shelf for about $100, and you think, why not? Maybe it is a charbroil bullet or a basic Weber Smoky Mountain 14-inch. Thin steel, usually 18 gauge or less, a water pan in the middle, and a lid that never quite seals right. The first cook is always the same. You light the charcoal, you toss on some chicken thighs or a pork butt, and then you spend the next 6 hours fighting temperature swings like you are negotiating with a toddler. 1 minute you are at 225 degrees, 20 minutes later, you are pushing 300. You learn real fast that smoking meat is not grilling. It is a patience test. But that first bite of pulled pork that you actually made yourself on that rickety little smoker in the driveway, that is the moment. That is the moment you start browsing smoker forums at midnight and your spouse starts getting nervous about the credit card. The price range here sits between $75 and $200. And for what it is worth, plenty of people cook incredible food on these for years. There are guys on barbecue forums who have been running the same Weber Smoky Mountain 14-inch since 2009, turning out ribs that would embarrass a restaurant. And they see no reason to upgrade. But the limitations are real. Thin steel means the wind will rob your heat in the winter. Small charcoal baskets mean constant refueling on longer cooks. And the temperature control, even with practice, is always a negotiation rather than a setting. This is the part where things stopped being funny, though, because once you have tasted what is possible, staying at level 1 gets harder. Level 2. The upgraded kettle and cabinet smokers. This is the first real quality jump. The steel gets thicker, the seals get tighter, the airflow dampers actually work, and suddenly holding 225 degrees for 8 hours is not a constant battle anymore. The gold standard at this tier is the Weber Smoky Mountain 22-inch. It has been the workhorse of backyard BBQ for over 2 decades, and competitive cooks have won real money using them. The charcoal basket holds enough fuel for an overnight cook, the water pan keeps moisture in the chamber, and the thing is built like a tank compared to anything at level 1. On the other side of this tier, you have the electric and propane cabinet smokers. Brands like Masterbuilt made a fortune selling the idea that smoking meat should be as easy as using an oven. Load the wood chips, set the temperature, walk away. And for a lot of people, that is exactly what they want. The price range here runs from $200 to $500, and the food coming off a well-managed Weber Smoky Mountain can genuinely compete with smokers costing 5 times as much. The trick is learning to use the vents. Top vent stays open, bottom vent controls airflow. And within a few cooks, you start to understand how oxygen is the gas pedal for charcoal. The electric cabinet smokers sacrificed some of that smoky depth for convenience, but they opened up BBQ to a lot of people who never would have tried it otherwise. Your neighbor who has never lit a chimney starter in his life can load a Masterbuilt with applewood chips and pull off a perfectly serviceable smoked salmon on a Tuesday night. Now, you would think that would be enough. A reliable smoker that holds temp and produces great food. For a while, things actually seemed fine. But then the pellet grill companies showed up and changed the entire conversation. Level 3. Pellet grills and the convenience revolution. If you have been anywhere near BBQ culture in the last 10 years, you have seen the pellet grill explosion. Traeger started it decades ago, but Camp Chef, Pit Boss, RecTech, and a dozen other brands turned it into a full-blown arms race. The concept is simple. An electric auger feeds compressed hardwood pellets from a hopper into a fire pot. A fan circulates the smoke and heat. A digital controller holds your target temperature within about 15 degrees. And in 2026, most of these things connect to your phone through Wi-Fi so you can monitor your brisket from the couch. The appeal is obvious. You get real wood smoke flavor with the convenience of an oven. You do not have to babysit a fire. You do not have to learn airflow management. You set it and you check on it occasionally. And for a lot of backyard cooks, this is the sweet spot. Pellet grills in the $400 to $900 range produce, food that impresses guests, requires minimal skill to operate, and fits into a normal suburban lifestyle. But there is a debate raging inside the BBQ community about pellet grills. And it boils down to one question. Is the convenience worth what you give up in smoke flavor and bark formation? Old school stick burners will tell you that pellet grills produce a lighter, less complex smoke profile because the pellets burn cleanly, and the smoke exposure time is shorter. Pellet grill owners will tell you that nobody at the dinner table has ever complained, and they are probably right. The other criticism is durability. Pellet grills have electronic components, auger motors, fans, igniters, control boards, and those parts can fail. A Weber kettle from 1995 still works. A pellet grill from 2019 might need a new igniter rod and a controller board replacement. That is the trade-off you make for convenience. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. We cover BBQ gear, technique, and culture every week. Now let us step into a completely different world. Level 4. Ceramic kamado cookers. The Big Green Egg and the Kamado Joe. If you have ever walked into a BBQ store and seen those big ceramic egg-shaped cookers sitting on the showroom floor with price tags north of $1,000, you probably wondered what makes a ceramic grill worth that much. The answer is insulation. Ceramic walls are 2 to 3 inches thick. They hold heat like nothing else on the market. You can load a kamado with lump charcoal, light a small fire, close the vents down, and hold 225 degrees for 12 to 14 hours without adding a single piece of fuel. But the real trick is versatility. Swap the heat deflector plate out, open the vents wide, and these things will hit 700 degrees for Neapolitan-style pizza. That same cooker that slow-smoked your pork shoulder for 14 hours can sear a ribeye at temperatures that would warp a pellet grill's steel grates. Kamado Joe pushed the innovation further with their divide and conquer system, the slow roller insert for smoke circulation, and their airlift hinge that makes the 250-pound lid feel weightless. The Big Green Egg stayed more traditional, relying on decades of brand loyalty and a massive aftermarket accessory ecosystem. The price range runs from $800 for a smaller model to $2,000 or more for a fully loaded large kamado with a table and accessories. And the die-hard kamado community will tell you it is the last cooker you will ever need. The downside is capacity. A large kamado gives you about 18 inches of cooking diameter. That is enough for a couple of pork butts or one brisket. But if you are cooking for a big group, you are running multiple cooks or wishing you had something wider. Kamados are personal cookers, not crowd feeders, which, looking back, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, because most people who say they are done buying smokers are lying. Level 5. Heavy-duty offset stick burners. This is where BBQ gets serious. And by serious, I mean you are cooking with a live wood fire, managing airflow manually, and developing a skill that takes months or even years to master. An offset smoker has 2 chambers. The firebox sits to one side, where you burn splits of oak, hickory, pecan, or mesquite. The heat and smoke travel through a connecting hole into the main cooking chamber, passing over the meat before exiting through a chimney on the opposite end. At this level, the steel gets heavy. Quarter-inch plate is the standard for a proper offset. Anything thinner and you are fighting heat loss and temperature spikes. Brands like the Oklahoma Joe Highland sit at the entry point of this tier, while Lone Star Grills and Horizon Smokers represent the upper range with fully welded, airtight construction. The food that comes off a well-managed stick burner is different. The smoke profile is heavier, more complex, layered in a way that pellet grills and kamados struggle to replicate. The bark on a brisket cooked over post oak for 12 hours has a deep depth of flavor that is hard to describe until you have tasted it. But the price is not just money, which runs from $1,000 to $3,000. The price is time and attention. You are feeding that firebox every 30 to 45 minutes. You are reading the color of the smoke, looking for thin blue wisps instead of thick white billows. You are adjusting the damper when the wind shifts direction. You are learning to read the firebox temperature by the sound of the wood crackling. A lot of pitmasters will tell you that this level is where you either fall in love with BBQ or realize you were always more of a pellet grill person. And there is no shame in either answer. Managing a stick burner is a hobby unto itself, and not everyone wants that relationship with their cooker. And if that sounds like a lot, keep watching. Level 6. Custom-built and semi-commercial rigs. This is where the word backyard starts to feel inadequate. At level 6, you are not buying a smoker off a shelf. You are placing an order with a welder, and then you are waiting. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 2 years. Builders like Moberg Smokers in Texas have turned smoker fabrication into an art form. Each unit is built to spec, with features like reverse flow baffles that redirect heat and smoke under a steel plate before it rises through the cooking grate. The result is even heat distribution from one end of the chamber to the other, something that cheap offsets struggle with constantly. Fat Stack Texas and Mill Scale Ironworks are doing similar work, building smokers from heavy-gauge steel with insulated fireboxes, stainless steel grates, and precision damper systems. These are not just cookers. They are tools designed for people who treat BBQ like a discipline. The price range sits between $3,000 and $10,000, and that does not always include the trailer if you want it mobile. Some of these rigs weigh over 1,000 pounds. You are not rolling this into the garage next to the lawnmower. This decision seems small at the time, getting on a wait list, filling out a custom order form. But for a lot of people in the BBQ world, it was the moment they crossed over from hobbyist to something else entirely. Level 7. Competition and commercial pits. We have arrived at the top. The smokers that show up at the American Royal in Kansas City, at Memphis in May, at the Houston Livestock Show. Trailer-mounted rigs from Jambo Pits, Gator Pit of Houston, and Myron Mixon Smokers. These are full-size trailer smokers with multiple cooking chambers, rotisserie racks, warming boxes, and enough capacity to cook 30 briskets at once. Some of these rigs weigh 5,000 pounds and require a truck with a proper tow package just to move them. The Jambo J3 is a favorite on the competition circuit, known for its thick steel, tight seals, and the ability to hold temperature like a vault, even in February wind. Teams have won grand championships at the American Royal and the Jack Daniel's Invitational on Jambo pits, and the waiting list to buy one reflects that pedigree. On the commercial side, brands like Old Hickory and Southern Pride build rotisserie cabinet smokers that restaurants depend on. Franklin Barbecue in Austin, Texas runs multiple Old Hickory pits to keep up with the line that wraps around the building every single morning. The price range at Level 7 starts around $8,000 for a used competition trailer and climbs past $50,000 for a new custom-built rig with all the options. And at this point, you are not buying a grill. You are buying a piece of infrastructure. But there is an interesting thing that happens at the very top of this pyramid. The pitmasters running these rigs, the ones winning trophies and feeding thousands, many of them will tell you that the best meal they ever cooked was on a cheap offset in their backyard 20 years ago, feeding their family for the first time. The smoker does not make the pitmaster. It just gives them more room to work. Aaron Franklin cooked on a beat-up offset long before he became the most famous pitmaster in America. The smoker was a tool. The skill was everything. And that is true at every level of this list. The guy on Level 1 with a $100 bullet smoker who learns to read his fire and manage his temps will cook circles around the guy on Level 4 who just set it and forgot it. Equipment opens doors, but it is the person tending the fire who walks through them. So now you have seen all 7 levels, from the $100 bullet smoker that teaches you patience to the $50,000 trailer rig that turns BBQ into a profession. The real question is not which level is the best. It is which level matches where you are right now and how far down the rabbit hole you are willing to go. If this video helped you figure that out, drop a comment and tell me what level you are at. And if you are already shopping for Level 6 or 7, I want to hear about it.